this is religion, that's religion, but this got a jewel in it. But then it's not the same jewel that you read as a Muslim because you had a Muslim state of mind. You know what I mean? Then when you was a Holy Tabernacle Ministry, which is a Christian doctrine of our tribal thing, then you had that from a Christian perspective or a Christian consciousness. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with the Jewish or Nubian Hebrews. You read it and you had a Hebraic consciousness that you got out of it. You feel me? Now that you're in ancient Egypt, which is our natural nature, you can see it now with a natural consciousness of the universe, where everything came from. Because Pop always said the source of all information came from ancient Egypt. You feel what I'm saying? So now you're dealing with different levels and different perspective of the doctrine. It would appear to be contradicting, but it's where your conscious level of your mind is at. But once you become, step out of the realm of religion and put on the mask of God, you didn't realize that, okay, now I see where Pop was going at with all this information, and I see where he's going. To a person who is studying, who doesn't master the information, because you have two types of people that comes in the Wu-nuwaupu. You got a reader and you got a studier. And a studier becomes a student. People don't study. They don't put the pieces together. Why do you think the master teacher each week call it an update? It's not new information. He's updating the old information. This is with the masters. This is why they tried, they kidnapped our master teacher, because they knew where he was going with the doctrine. He said, it's going to happen. It's going to come a time where I'm going to have to take the old doctrine and I'm going to bring everything back full circle with the new doctrine. You know what I'm saying? They didn't want you to explain that because it was going into the food for the God doctrine. You feel me? So this is why the master teacher had to go the route. But if he would have gave you the sacred, secret information, look what you do now with the public, the basics. You feel me? Yeah, go ahead. Hattab.
The first question is from the Holy Tablets.
Yeah, go ahead. The Book of the Sumerians. Go ahead.
The Sumerians, okay. But it's chapter 7, the living soul.
Mm-hmm.
Tablet 2, verse 359.
You said chapter 2, verse in tablet 1 or
7, the living soul.
Chapter 7, right?
Right. Tablet 2, verse 359.
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
It says, though it operates under the influence of the pituitary gland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess I should go a little further before I ask the question. So, it says the etheric body, verse 353. Mm-hmm. The etheric body is an interlacing network of etheric wires that are knitted concentratedly at all the seats along the spine. The principal point of contact is the navel or umbilical seat of life. From there, it extends into the spleen by the nerve ganglia. From the umbilical seat of all human beings, desires rise, for this is an emotional center, a principal station of the subconscious mind in human beings, though it operates under the influence of the pituitary gland.
You said that chapter 7 was that, right? Was that tablet 2? Was that tablet 7 of living soul?
I'm sorry, tablet 1.
Okay, all right.
1-359.
You said 1-359?
Yes.
You said chapter 1-59?
The tablet is 1.
Yeah.
And the verse is 359.
You said 359?
Yes.
Okay, I got you. All right.
So my question is, why is the pituitary gland important to the chakras and the etheric body?
Okay, what verse was that when you read it?
Okay.
359, right?
Right.
I'm trying to see it right there. So I read some influence. I see it. Mm-hmm. Okay, I got you, because it's in the extraction creation also too. What happened is this. The pituitary is in the book called Extraction Creation, where Papa actually goes into the function of the pituitary gland also, right? When the beings are vibrating in the energy form that you call known as Ethereum, right? When they have to manifest in physical form, right? They have to activate the pituitary gland when they come down in gender, because you got to remember that you're dealing with non-gender beings. You know what I'm saying? So the pituitary gland not only will determine what gender you are, it also is used to bring in your melanin complexion. Because if you don't activate the pituitary gland, they will come out in the ghost form, which you had called the Caucasian. That is in the, if I'm not mistaken, is in the back of extraterrestrial creation, which goes a little bit more into depth. When it breaks down the pituitary gland.
Well,
Yeah.
and I got one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This one is from Dimensional Shift. Verses 70, 71, and 72. And it reads, because of the variant particle pulsation rate of the atoms or cells, and it has to do with tones, sound, as used in each word. That was 71. 72. As you sing, chant, pray, or speak, the use of grammatic pronunciation of your own language using your own tongue and given voice box tone in numbers, as in music, opens your imagination and access to the other dimensions of your etheric being by your emotional being or your Ba soul. Okay. The question that I have here is, if the tones and the chanting and the praying, if this is all done in your own language, will it also help you with your emotional being and your etheric being?
Yes, because you got to also remember that you as a physical being is a form of light that has been slowed down to the point that you became physical, that vibrates. You hear me? That's why Pop had the book I called DNA, Tone, Vibration, Frequency, and Sound, right? You know what I'm saying? Because it all ties in, right? What happened is that as dark matter, we were dark energy and we were part of the original creation of the universe. You hear me? We became conscious gases that eventually became individuals and it manifested in human form. So when you're dealing with the dimensions, you're dealing with your own etheric creation of where you vibrate on. This is why that certain beings vibrate on different abodes because of that vibrational level. You feel me? So when you chant, when you or speak in your natural tone, you're able to vibrate on there. And this actually helps you in everything that you need to do in life. This is one of the things that we were able to do, what you call feats of, what they call miracles or things they couldn't understand, because we was able to activate certain things that deal with nature. Because what happened is once you become in tune with your own vibrations, you're able to you become your own creator. You feel me? And you're able to make things manifest or happen for you that you never thought you could do before. Because everything in the universe is all part of the all, or put. You know what I'm saying? Everything vibrates. Everything in this room is ether, but it vibrates on different densities and it has in different tones. You feel me? Some are slower in vibration, some are faster in vibration. You feel me? So this is how you become more in tune, and when you're dealing with the vibrations, and also when you're dealing with emotions, you got to remember that you're dealing with energy and motion. What you're calling emotions is dealing with the stuff that happens here on this physical plane of people who vibrate on different frequency level. Certain things that certain individuals do are comfortable to them. You hear me? But what happened is that when you get caught up in their emotions or energy emotions, you start vibrating on their frequency, and then you are becoming distraught. Meaning that there's no such thing as a good and evil person. This is what the master teacher was trying to tell us years ago. Because you're using religious jargon, this is what we've been associating with. Pop had to do that so you can be raised to a certain level. And once we got to that certain level, then Pop said, no, it's not about good and bad or good and evil. It's about agreeable and disagreeable. You're living right now in a planetary resort, which you have different beings, different species, and they all vibrate on different frequency levels. Whatever they vibrate on, they're comfortable with that, and the things that they do might be destructive to you because you don't do it, because it's not part of your natural nature. You hear me? But what happened is that they created a new culture from these different species, and they call it the American Western pop culture, because America is a melting pot of different species and different extraterrestrials, descendants. You hear me? And what happened is when you're hanging out or socializing with people that does not think, feel, and act as the way you do naturally, either they convert to your way of thinking or the way you do things, or you will actually become like one of them. And what happened is people say, well, you used to be this way, but now you off the chain. You feel me? So you were so wholesome and sweet when you was younger, now you're ratchet. And people are like, what happened? How did she change? Because you're vibrating on different frequencies. Now you're eating their foods, you're speaking their language, now you're participating in their recreations. You know what I'm saying? So this is what happens. Different beings vibrating motion, that energy is moving in different directions. And what happens is you get caught up in it. And then this is how you lose your mind sometimes. And it's like, I lost control of my emotions. This is one of the things that the master teacher was trying to take us through. It was just called the School of Patience, El Saboro. Because El Saboro is the kryptonite to over-emotional people. Because in the Ansar school,
Can you say that again?
I said,
Kryptonite.
it's kryptonite to emotions, because if you have patience, you don't get emotional. Like, okay, this person's off the chain. I'm not going to pay no mind. I'm just going to be calm. I'm not going, I'll be patient. And you let them play themselves. But what happened is we were so caught up in emotions, like, I don't like her. You know that how it was in Ants. People, we lived community living. We lived amongst each other. And you talk about people living amongst each other and people who was raised around their family. Your family know how you are, right? So your family, like, I'm not dealing with you because I know how you are. And you're consistent. You hear me? This is one of the times when 9 to 10 your mother beat you sometimes because she didn't like the certain things that you were doing. Now you're living amongst other people who you don't know. They're complete strangers to you, right? And now you got to deal with that mentality. Some people gossip, some people stab you in the back, some people are too nice, some people are too mean, some people are cranky, some people are grumpy, some people are too hippie-ish. You know what I'm saying? Some people are too militant. Some people are too passive, and this is what you had to deal with in the school of, El Saboro, or what Pop called it, the school of patience. You had to be patient on dealing with people. Some people couldn't deal with that type of emotions, so they were defeated. Oh, I can't take this, so I'm leaving, because I can't deal with the sisters. And then you had it, I can't deal with the brothers. You know what I mean? But the whole thing is that now that you're in 2013, those who adore to the end, we're on such another level mentally. People say, why you don't display any emotions when this person do this? I said, because I lived with people like that, and I know how they go. I know their beginning and I know their end. And I know this guy is going to burn out because I seen it before. How many of y'all witnesses over the years when you ran into the same person 20 years ago with the same mentality? And now back in the day, you might have got emotional, but then now you like, been there, done that. You feel me? This is the school that Pop was weaning us for. So when we become masters, then you'll be able to have better patience with your own students when you become that master. You feel me? Yeah, go ahead, my brother.
Question is about the pyramids and the connection between the pyramids, the connections with the obelisk and Sahu, as far as being able to connect. But I mean,
Just take your time asking your question. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, I was listening to you, so
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let me backtrack. The pyramids.
Yeah.
The oldest pyramids on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the vast majority of them are in Nubia, correct?
Yeah. Nubia has the more pyramids than any area in the world.
Now, what's the connection with the Great Pyramids, and Sahu, or if there is a connection?
When you say Great Pyramids, so you're going back with the Caucasians say great. Mm-hmm. Wherever the Nubians were at, or the ancient Nuwaupians, right? Mm-hmm. It had nothing to do with great. Mm-hmm. It had to do with you have a cell phone, mm-hmm. and you're able to what? Call someone, right? What's your service? You have iPhone, you have Galaxy.
Boost Mobile.
You got to do smoke. Now what does he say? I'm going to change my carrier. I'm going to go with the iPhone. You know what I'm saying? Those are equipment to pyramids. Communications, these are power grids, these beings were able to channel energy using tachyon or tetrahedron science to pull the energy from the planet Earth, because the Earth is a unlimited battery of free energy. And it's up for grabs. That's why all the beings want the planet, because it has an unlimited power source that they can tap into, where you don't have to keep going to the store and keep buying Duracell batteries. You feel me? So what happened is the pyramids of Giza were connected to where the beings came from, and this is how they will communicate in ancient times. In this time, they call them skyscrapers. And when the two twin towers crashed it down, this is what the master teacher said in the updates, that the Caucasians lost their connection with their overlords, the Platinians. You feel me? But now what happened is that because the earth was knocked off its magnetic grid, off its axis, these pyramids are dormant right now. But now that the planet Earth is shifting back, these pyramids will actually start be turned back on again, and we'll be able to communicate. So no matter where we went at, we always set up pyramids so we have communications.
We always had cell phones everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And it was more than just communication. It's also for powering up their ships and stuff like that, what they call man jets or solar boats. Because you have a boat that floats on water. So what will a solar boat do? It will be something that's in the sky, which you call an airplane or air planet. You feel me?
So the only difference, what you're saying, between like the 3 pyramids in Giza, as opposed to different ones, is just because I'm just thinking of the size-wise, it had to be more energy. Is that because of that specific area?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was more energy, so maybe bigger crafts would come and
just because it's bigger doesn't mean that it was going to transmit more power. It could be that way. It could not be that way. If you look at computers in 1954, it would take up a whole room. Yeah. But now you got a computer now that you could put on a table that kicks out way more power than that. It's just that you're dealing with ancient technology. And you're dealing with a natural conductor of energy. You feel me? See, this is why the master teacher said that they had underground tunnels and cabin where the water from the Nile would actually go under these pyramids and help power it up. You feel me? Because they had to produce a certain amount of wattage. You know what I'm saying? Because it was ancient technology back then that man has just started just catching up to, but they haven't still figured out how they were able to do it naturally. You feel me? So I'm not saying that it bigger or smaller, but it was what it was. It served its purpose. Yeah. You feel me?
It was the technological concept and the actual defeat.
So you'll have to ask the architect, why did he make it so big or so small? But that was something that'd be sacred and secret. Yeah. But you will get that one day inside the ancient Egyptian order that the master teacher gave us. Mm-hmm. But you got to understand this. The ancient Egyptian order information is a stepping stone to the sacred and secret information, because now you have people who swore oaths, right? In these sacred societies that we have, right? And now they're putting this stuff out on the internet like they have no respect for it. This is why the master is who he is. He knew they were going to do it. This is why he would never give them the science. You see what I'm saying? They want to. Their whole thing is this. The actual facts in the Patarak, the master is not coming from the master teacher. He don't write that. First of all, Pop is an author of over 600 something books. You hear me? He written books in time at one time. But when the Nubian Islamic Hebrew Ansar community started picking up in big numbers, then he had the sisters do that. Pop would start dictating this, that. And anyone who been around knows this. This is why we had a book called Whatever Happened to the Nubian Islamic Hebrew Mission. You know what I'm saying? Or even you look at a book called Ansar Code, Rebuttal to the Slander, you will see the book department in there, and you see sisters up there writing books. And then the master teacher even had certain students who were being groomed to be masters, right? This is why he had the Disciples of the Lamb, with different teachers who were very eloquent in teaching the doctrine, had their own cassette tape series out. Then you had certain sisters who were being elevated, like Hagar. Certain sisters that had their own books, like Great Balls of Fire, Man of the Hour, and what was the other one? Who Lived Before the Adam and Eve story, where the sisters were writing their own and authoring their own books. It was authored by these sisters. You hear me? You understand what I'm saying? Even the sister books were said authored by this particular sister. You feel me? So what happened is these guys were trying to tear into the old doctrine, right? But those are religious doctrines. You can do that. Just like he said earlier, a master will allow you to do what you do, right? So when the time came, the master said, look, I'm about to go somewhere where they can't follow me. So now, how we know this is coming from Pop? He said, don't believe me, check it out. You didn't learn, who you learn that from? You learned that from Malachi Kubano York, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, Yahweh ben Yahweh, Noble Drew, Marcus Garvey, and so on, etc., etc. Never came with a doctrine like, don't believe me, check it out. Pop came with that saying because you were so deep and so brainwashed into religion that the only way he could get you out is by giving you that saying right there, right? Because you needed to do your research. But what you're researching is still public domain doctrine. It's not sacred and secret. You know what I'm saying? But it's the information that was the basics that came from the 3 degrees that was given to Alexander the Great in the Egyptian spy system thousands of years ago. You fell for the okie doke. You thought you had it all figured out. You know what I'm saying? These are tools to break the spell, to break you out of a spell that has been cast on you in layers, dimensionally. You know what I mean? People sit here and say, I don't read the Quran. I'm into the spiritual aspect of Islam. I don't read the Bible because man makes mistakes, but I deal with the spiritual because God talks to me. But you're still stuck in a Christian philosophy consciousness because you would not even know what the word God was until you read the book of Christians. You wouldn't know who Allah was unless you read the book of Muslims. You wouldn't know who Yahweh was unless you read the book of the Jews. So even if you don't accept that religious written doctrine, you still got the concept of that consciousness in you, and you're pushing that. Well, I talked to him. You don't even know that was your ancestors or some disagreeable or agreeable being, because you are trapped in person, places, and things. Consciously, you thinking that you're in communication with divine beings, and you don't even know the difference between the two. Pop is teaching this in the Vortexes, in the actual fact, but a lot of these guys ran and thought they had it figured out. Now, because you got caught in the holy tablets and trapped, and you thought you had it figured out, now Pop is updating and saying, you were never part of the Anunnaki. You know what I'm saying? You were part of the Natharu. You thought it was a difference. But back then, because you was in the spell of religion, it was all as one. But now Pop is putting the separation, like he's separating them. You are who you are. Now you know who they are, because when you read the Vortexes in the actual fact, you actually see the devil for what it really is. These guys thought they had it figured out and they exposed themselves. You said you would die for Pops. You cried, tears out your eyes saying, I love the master teacher. Now you're online slandering him and saying how close you are. I know the case inside and out. So when did you stop believing in the old man? When did you start trusting the old man? You said that you love him, and we heard you say it on videotapes. We heard you say it illegal, right? Now all of a sudden, what changed you? You knew all the information. You were rolling with him. What changed you? Were you stupid? Was you retarded? When did you become smarter? When you left him? I thought you were smarter when you got with him. So this is the mentality that we're dealing with. These guys are here for ulterior motives. We welcome you back, but you still want to sit beneath us because you still learn from us. You know what I'm saying? And you have to still sit at the master's feet. But they don't want that, because they still have a European mentality. Oh, you'll go sit amongst the white man and ask him questions. Well, Zechariah Stitchin, you don't even know Zechariah Stitchin. Zechariah Stitchin was alive right now. I saw you. He's like this nigga right here. He's a Jew. You know how Jews feel about African Americans. You couldn't even sit at Zechariah, but Pop was able. You were able to sit amongst Pops. You know what I'm saying? And he was able to give you that, but you didn't respect it because you wanted to be your own Superman. I can do a Pop do. I can study this, study that. Okay, tell me something new. Break something down that we never heard before. You're just a repeater. You're repeating Pop's doctrine. We all do, but we're student teachers. But you are not the master teacher. You know what I'm saying? So these guys will repeat, right, what Pop say, but you don't bring anything new. Tell me something we never heard before. The master have done this from time and time again for the last 40, 50 years, right? Even while he's incarcerated, he's still bringing stuff new. But they can't dispute it, like my brother said earlier, because they don't want to accept it. And if you're saying that the sisters write the book, now are you saying the sisters are more powerful than Pa Mazal? Pa Nabab Yanun? They got more, which is a compliment. But now, if the sisters did write it, dispute that. We hear what you're saying. Oh, Pop didn't write that. The sisters wrote it. Okay, and I would say this for lack of argument, the sisters did write it. Dispute it. Oh, where did he get it from? Oh, now you want to ask. Huh? First you said Pop plagiarizes people's books, right? Nobody came forth and said, well, I'm suing Pop for plagiarism, right? It's not your information in the first place. You went to Egypt, you went to Babylon, different places that we ran, and you copy stuff that we left thousands of years ago. You don't own that. That's our stuff. Now, You've done your little research. This guy wrote this, and I see where Pop got that from. Okay, because he put the research in it for you to research it. Who isn't trying to hide it? Now that you can't research certain information because you can't critique it and try to destroy it, your whole thing is that, where did he get it from? You tell us where he got it from. Since you just say he's not who he is, you say he's not a master teacher, you say he's not a being, that an extraterrestrial entity that incarnated in the human flesh, he's just a regular man. Well, tell me where you get the information from. Matter of fact, tell me where the sisters are getting the information from. Break down the dimensional shift. Break down the argument. Break down the difference between the Natharu and Anunnaki. They can't do that because they didn't wait long enough. They ran and thought they had it all figured out. We had a lot of teachers. A lot of teachers, and they all broke off and did their own thing. They all trapped in wherever they left at, is the school they teach. Certain people left in the Moorish school and they became Moorish. Some people left in the Native American school and they became chiefs. Some people left in the Egyptian school and they became Vortexes. You hear me? And doctor and this, that, and you still stuck with the old doctrine. Because remove Pop's doctrine and use your own doctrine. Let's see you teach something new that without using it as the foundation. They can't do it. Any other question?
Dealing with the Vortex opening, 2013, and what's the difference between the Vortex opening and beings being able to come through, and also as far as the way they use the Orion's belt to get to the next galaxy, to get to Elion? What's the difference?
Where do you get that from?
No, it's just a question.
Okay, you said, that's what I'm saying, is that, I was trying to figure out the basis of where you get your question from.
Well, I'm saying, like, from the Vortex opening.
Yeah.
I remember...
every 10 years the Vortex is supposed to open,
and then beings are able to come in and out, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as far as getting to Ilion from the 18th galaxy to the 19th galaxy, if I'm not mistaken, you would have to go through there. That's one of the reasons why the Orion's belt was set up, and that would be the Stargate. Is that?
I don't think it's like that the way you're saying it.
Okay.
It's just that what Pop was saying is that these are called wormholes, right?
Wormholes, okay.
The beings will come here. Pop said you had to find a glitch in a grid and for us to get out of here. What happened is that you're still dealing with tones and vibrations. You know what I'm saying? This is why the master teacher said, I had to raise you up to a certain level so you could be able to turn yourself inside out. As a being of matter, which is physical, you're not going to be able to go to a wormhole. It'll crush you instantly, you know what I'm saying? So what you had to do, you had to turn yourself inside out, and there's a being of light. So you can go from one side of the universe to the other side of the universe. But the first pickup will you be on a physical craft. But when you start getting to a certain destination of where you came from, this is one of the updates that Pop said, wherever you came from is where you're going to be dropped off at. A lot of us are not from Risk. A lot of us are actually from different star constellations when these so-called Riski and Natharu came to these different planets and intermingled or interbred with certain beings so they'd be able to survive on these different planets. That's why in the book of the introduction of the Black Book, it said they had to create different beings to be able to survive in different environments. And sometimes some beings had to die in order for them to live, in order for them to survive in this environment. You feel me? So they had to crossbreed and create themselves multiple avatars depending on what star system they occupied at the time. So what happened is a lot of us are from different parts. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us are not Riskian, as the master teacher said. And once you go back to Risk, you shall manifest as a crystal. You know what I'm saying? I don't understand the level of that because the master teacher didn't go into detail about it. You know what I'm saying? But he was the only one that's going to be able to, shed light on that later on. You feel what I'm saying? But when you're dealing with the vortex, you know what I'm saying? It's talking about, you getting from one point A to point B. You know what I'm saying?
So basically, it's as far as dealing with the vortex and a wormhole.
It will be a wormhole. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
For lack of a better word. You feel me?
Okay. Now that makes sense.
Yeah.
Last one.
Yeah. And with that, I'd like to pass the class back over to my brother, Menthu Hotep.
Are there any other questions? Okay, y'all were supposed to remind me about the soul. Not having soul as what we taught at one point, and how that has been updated, and how if you have been diligently walking with the Master through the years, how you would have learned a greater comprehension and understanding of it. And as he explained to us, there's many different levels to the soul question. We never allowed him to finish his explanation on the subject without trying to attack what we thought we knew. Now, first, let's start with the English language, and that's where we get our first confusion about soul. S-O-U-L. If you take the U out, you have the Latin sol, S-O-L, which represents the sun. Right? What does the sun give off? It gives off light. And what is light? Light is energy. Light is energy. Okay? So let's start with that. Now, in English, James Brown, a prominent musician back in the day, and because music has changed to such a degree that it's difficult for us to even use that explanation the way we did, let's say in the 70s and 80s. Because in the 1970s, that's where you had the Trans-Europe Express come through. No longer was recording artists going inside of a studio and creating an emotional vibration. They were using edits, bytes, sampling machines, digital, to try to duplicate that which was natural. And in the 70s, you had moving away from acoustic instruments until electric instruments, even though it was analog, but it was still electrical. So the true essence of the music, you could put a guitar, just set it down, and it's playing music. We just haven't learned to attune to that vibration so that we could really feel it. We're dealing with violence of striking. You're beating a drum. A piano is striking a string. A guitar, you have to strike it to create that vibration. And that's what we tune and adhere to. But it has changed now to the point where it appears that Caucasians are dancing. So we used to say, okay, all you have to do is put on a James Brown record, and you can see who has soul or not. But they've damaged our younger generation to the point where even Negaru, Nubians, cannot dance. You put on a James Brown record, and it doesn't even move them. So the soul would be our emotional expression as Negaru. Our ability athletically, our pinpoint accuracy that you see in athletics, our timing, our natural relationship to the nature, all of this relates to soul. Now let's go further. Dealing with the Negaru man, why it was said in the updates that in order for the female to get her soul, she needs a man. Because the man's soul it dwells above, and it links inside of his body. Now when we say above, if you read the actual fact, emotional energies, emotional energies, the emotions we give off from the energy. Dealing with what is soul again? Sol, sun give off light. What is light? Energy. But the emotional energies, man's dwells or is linked above from the ninth mood of vibration, the ninth plane, all the way down to the physical. That's why when a male ejaculates, the male is delivering the soul. That's why when they do a test tube baby, the test tube baby, a man has to ejaculate. They can't extract it out of his testicles. A man would have to ejaculate because it would have to go through the whole process before to achieve that light, that spark. So the 7,777,777 sperm cells that are electrified have to be through that, receiving that spark through that ejaculation. So the man's dwells above, Now, the Nagaru female's soul, she has soul. But before you start to attack and say, I thought you said she didn't have a soul, this is another level to the soul question. Now, her soul will dwell around her, but it's linked to her left side. The Nagaru males, where does his dwell? Above. And linked from above to the inside of his body. That's the difference. Hers is around her here on the physical plane, but she doesn't have that link. So the male's link and his strength genetically would come from the female through the mitochondria DNA, but her link to the higher realms would come through the male. That's why they need to link together and walk as one. Now, is that same with Caucasians? No, it is not. Theirs is a lesser degree. We used to be able to explain it just by putting on music. We can't do that any longer because of what they've done with music. They've changed Nagaru music to where it had the emotional expression with the soul and changed it now digitalized to where it appears as though they're moving. But someone from an older generation, let's say from the 60s, the 70s, that actually saw it before it shifted, they could be like, they're stiffed. It sounds like that's choreographed, or it looks like it's choreographed. It looks like they've practiced that. You know, we didn't have to practice. You put on a record, we just start moving to the beat. But since they've changed that, the Caucasian, now the Caucasian female soul will dwell, hers dwells all over, just on the physical plane. That's the difference. It's all over just on the physical plane. And she would need her link to, let's say, an animal. And the Caucasian's female, or the Caucasian male soul would dwell on the lower realms and link to demons or the abode of what is referred to as hell. And that is sparked by way of blood sacrifices. So anytime that you come in contact with any religion, Yoruba, that requires a blood sacrifice, that's linked to the Caucasian male's soul where warlocks dwell. That's not us. That's not what we did in ancient Tamaray. That's not how we felt. So that outformation had to be updated, and there's still more outformation that has to be given to that. But that was a point, and that was about 3 years ago, when we didn't even allow the master to continue that, down that road of that explanation for us. Now that we have Patrak, and you have the all expanding, it goes to yet another level to be able to comprehend when you're dealing with all. To get back to the question about God, God is thought, or if most religious people, monotheistic religion, when they communicate with Nuwaupians, and they ask the question about, okay, so who do you feel God is? Or who do y'all say is God? The concept of God is totally different. I'm God. They say, okay, well, you didn't create anything, and neither did your God. There's a difference between creation, existing, and things that was made. We got to understand that first. The book of John, the first chapter, without him was not anything made that was made. In the beginning, God created. What's the difference? To make something, you're utilizing something that already existed. Or you'd have to change the meaning of create. Creation means to grow. That's the etymological meaning, to create. That's not in the religious concept. The religious concept of creation is to manifest something into existence that did not exist before. That's not what creation is. Creation is a process. That's why you add the T-I-O-N. Can you create something? To create something would be the snap of a finger, but it's usually a process. So are the 7 days of creation 7 24-hour days? No. In right knowledge, we'd have to be able to explain the account of how words was changed from their places. To understand that if you go over into the book of Jeremiah, you will see where Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 and verse 2, you insert Jeremiah. Now there's a whole patrak, and the name of it escapes me right now, but it was read by the elder Tunde Ray, as well as Tepi Amun, the elders. And it's not out in publication as of yet, but it explained about what was taking place and the war in heaven. And that war was over the gods, as we would have it, the extraterrestrials from one planet, poisoning the meat for the gods to eat, and it would kill them. And that broke out in a war. And you read about that, the fierce anger of the Lord in the book of Jeremiah. But it's only a few verses. It goes in great detail and explain it in this patrak. In great detail in terms of what took place on the beings on the planet, who lived, the Caucasoid, the Pleiadians coming down, creating them for food. And then how the Natharu were the ones that poisoned that meat so that they don't have the Nagaru, their children. And that's what started that war. So these are other things that as I said in the introduction, that we have to make clear now so that you have an understanding. And it's best to deal with the questions to make you think, to be able to bring that out. Are there any questions? If there's no questions, we've done our job. There's no need for us to continue to preach to you. I did my best to try to stimulate your intellect. So some of y'all are just sitting there without any pens or papers or writing. Some of y'all are taking notes, some of y'all are not. But if there's no further questions, we'll go ahead and bring the session to a close. All right, thanks for coming out. God bless. Good night.